All right, here we go. Unsurprisingly, the second I put Blackout and Spotlight on the Dragon Pole, they won. No contest. They immediately won. I knew they probably would. But now that I've started doing the Dragon Poles, because I started with it from the very get-go, I kind of feel like I have to do the rest. And I wasn't actually trying to save these two for last. I wanted to wait till I had a stronger idea of how I wanted to do them. That's what I've been kind of doing with all the dragons. The dragons I put on are ones that I've got at least a slight idea of how I want to pose them, how I want to draw them, or just kind of feel like, man, I would like to draw that dragon. That's kind of what it was with Blaze. I was like, you know what, he'd be fun to draw. So I put him on there, even though I didn't have a super strong idea of how to pose him. Blackout and Spotlight here, they are ones I did know how to pose. And I knew I wanted to have Spotlight and Blackout be the dragons fully facing forward. Spotlight with the wings up, rising up, and then Blackout coming down. I'll talk more of Blackout when we get to his. Her design came together really nicely. She's been one of the fastest drawings I've ever done. It helped a bit that I was able to just kind of duplicate and reverse her wing, but I do that in the early stages because I don't want the wings to be perfectly identical, and so I will bring it over when it's rough, and then when I go and touch up the wings, which again, I cut out a lot of the line cleanup because that's kind of just boring to watch. Then it starts to adjust, and then it gets just a little bit of variation, and I think that looks a bit better than a perfect mirror. Overall, she just came together really, really nicely. I didn't struggle with too many elements to her. I think her eyes actually were the hardest part. Another thing I cut out was me playing with her eyes just a little bit here and then deciding to go with her sun mark on her forehead. Light and dark as elements, though. Oh my goodness, I love the scarcity of light and dark. I actually think that's a good thing to have. Something a little bit different. It makes the lore richer, makes the world more interesting. To have elements that are just more rare within the universe. I know a lot of people want more light and dark Skylanders, but I think it was a really good call to basically half the amount of light and dark characters for each sequential release. Something I think is very strong about Skylanders is its elemental identity. They aren't copying what other things do. Another thing I know a lot of people want in a lot of fan stuff is dual elements, characters having more than one element. And it's not that I don't think that should not be possible within the universe, but I think it should be extraordinarily rare, and there needs to be some sort of explanation. I think there are so many interesting things you can do with elements without it being just this character has both elements because their parents or whatever were two elements, or just because they are two elements. I've had a game concept that I'd love to talk more called Elemental Shutdown, and it is where you have to get around certain basically chaos gets a device that shuts down elements, and any creature tied to that element will fall asleep, kind of an eternal sleep until it shifts, and basically Chaos's machine doesn't work correctly yet, and so he can't shut down all elements at once. He has to kind of pick and choose, or it rotates or glitches. But light and dark aren't affected. And then elemental oddities that aren't necessarily dual elements. One of them could be a creature that is of the chaos element that isn't evil the way Chaos and Chaosandra are, or creatures that are tied to each other. Let's say Sonic Boom's chicks break their curse and actually grow up, but because of that curse they are tied to each other, and each one has a different element. Their sibling Link, because of this curse, kind of lets them pull on each other's abilities without being dual elements themselves. There's so many creative ways you can do it. Anyway, getting back to light and dark themselves, one of the things I love about it, especially early on with them, is the parallel way they introduced these. With Trap Team, you had the two dragons, like Spotlight and Blackout. They are a pair. It is so obvious. They have complementary designs. Their wings, they're different, but they're at the same time, they are still the same general aesthetic without the wing membrane. their horns on their head have a similar look to them, yet Blackout has this much elongated nose horn, whereas Spotlight has the fringes under her horn. They're different, but they're so complementary. That is wonderful. They do this again with Nightlight and Nightmare, characters I'm not as familiar with. I wouldn't mind getting to know them better, but two knights, the horse and the eagle. If you don't know Greek mythology, that is Poseidon and Zeus. Common contrast between the horse and the bird. Land, sky, like there is such a clear contrast. And then classic creatures like the centaur and the angel, so fun. Nightfall and Asterblast, which is my favorite pair of the light and dark, are a lot less obvious, but what we do have a duality here, where you've got an alien from outer space, that's Asterblast, and then an alien from the sea. The space and sea are the two least explored elements of the Earth in today's world, and is where you find the most oddities, or you expect to find the most oddities in the case of aliens. I don't think we've successfully actually found any, but there's been a lot of them imagined. And then you also have a lot of visual contrast, yet cohesion. They're both got a very strong color identity and opposite color identity between yellow and white, and then the natural opposite to yellow is purple and black. So they color contrast and then texture contrast. Asterblast is all about those hard edges. Nightfall is all soft, wavy, constant movement, and so they really well contrast each other. Sadly, that did not continue into Imaginators. Hoodsickle and Blastertron, other than being villains, don't have anything in common. Visually, thematically, nothing. Same thing with Starcast and Aurora. I think Starcast and Aurora on their own are great. I like the idea of Eon having a niece. That's fun. I wish they'd brought that more in Academy. There's a lot of story potential there. Starcast on his own, he's really well designed. He's a great Dark Skylander, but they do lose that balance. I think it really starts here, though, with Blackout and Spotlight. They are iconic dragons. There's a reason they're so popular. There's a reason they are as expensive as they are. I thankfully got them in between, I think 2017, 18-ish. So they weren't as expensive as they are now. I'm so happy to have them in my collection, though. They are beautiful, beautiful dragons. And honestly, the ones I hesitate to ever paint. I have to have a golden light bulb moment if I'm ever going to paint these two. Any other character, I don't mind painting, honestly, but these two are just such beautiful and iconic dragons that I hesitate to do anything to them. Okay, so here Spotlight is finishing up. You can see she's got a lot of pink hue, whereas Blackout has a green hue, which is actually also, like Nightfall and Asterblast with yellow and purple, pink and green are also natural opposites. So that's another example of really well done color art, and having just that subtle pink to her. And Blackout, his green's a little bit more prominent, actually, especially in his figure, but your eyes don't think of him as a green dragon. You just see the black, and then the green just adds that kind of void. It just makes it interesting. I'm about to jump into his recording, so I'll talk more about him there. But yeah, here's Spotlight. You guys have been extremely awesome in how you've received her over on Reddit and Twitter. I'm glad you guys like her. I'm glad you like this art, and I'm excited to actually make a Skystone of her. Stick around for that.